Welcome, everyone, and good morning. Good morning to those who are gathered here in our sanctuary, as well as all who are joining us online. We begin this morning with a musical prelude. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Charlottesville. My name is Reverend Leah Derland Jones, and my pronouns are she and her. I am pleased to be leading worship this morning with our Director of Music, Scott DeVoe. Whoever you are and wherever you have come from, the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Charlottesville welcomes you. We are delighted that you have joined us for this morning's service, and we're grateful to all who have made this moment of our gathering possible. I invite you now to take a moment to greet others, and those online are invited to unmute, and those here in the sanctuary and social hall are welcome to greet your neighbors, especially those you may not know. We offer special welcome to newcomers and invite you to join us for fellowship in the social hall after the service. Please use one of our red coffee mugs, and UUCVille members and friends are invited to offer a special welcome to anyone with a red mug. There is a live stream of the service in the social hall, and while everyone is welcome here in the sanctuary, the social hall can be a good option if you need a roomier space. Many thanks to the folks helping us share worship both here and online, our greeters and ushers and hospitality team members. Special thanks to our AV Tech team led this morning by Angela Orba and our new AV Tech staff member, Ben Jackson. Welcome, Ben. Ben is in his second week with us, and we are so grateful that he is here. And we are also grateful to Angela for orienting Ben to our AV system. And now I welcome the board member who is offering greetings this morning, and I believe that is Jimmy Gorham.
Hello, I'm Jimmy Gorham, and I'm your treasurer. I'm on the board. I'm happy to be greeting you today. And I'm going to ask you, do you wonder how it is you can check your pledge and whether you've paid? Are you on the directory? Do you know how to check the directory for other people's information? So we are tabling today after this. We're tabling for Breeze, and all that stuff happens through Breeze, and some people know how to use it and some people don't. Some people might have forgotten. So please stop by the table that we'll be setting up in the social hall after today's service. And it's going to be 3 of us sitting at a table, and we're here ready with a computer. We can help you, hopefully, with any question you may have about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jimmy. Here are this morning's announcements. Greta Dershimer shares that today is the last day for the mystery book sale this year at our congregation. I believe these are some of Greta's beloved books that she has found a very clever way to pass along and also raise some money for our congregation. So she says we will have small sets of 3 books or single books available to sell. Single paperbacks will cost $2, single hardcovers will cost $4, and a set of 3 paperbacks will cost $6. She's got this all figured out. So stop by and see her, and she invites you to make your own set of 3 books to suit your interests. All proceeds of the sale go to support our congregation. She says authors are all well known for their popularity and frequent awards. So please don't rush now. Wait until after the service to choose new books for your own library. You're invited to join Raven and Flame outside or in the social hall, depending on what the weather does between now and then, to write postcards to voters. This campaign hopes to encourage voters to enlist or re-enlist in mail-in ballots, a known way to increase voter turnout. We'll have the cards, the addresses, and a short message for people. You're invited to join your friends here in the social hall on Wednesdays from noon to 1:15 for a bring-your-own lunchtime of conversation and friendship. All are welcome. I think there were 7 people here this last Wednesday, so a lovely way to connect with friends midweek. And then everyone is invited to join in coffee and other refreshments in the social hall following the service today. Let us prepare ourselves for worship now with a call to worship offered by Elizabeth Barish Brown and entitled Co-Regulation. From our very first breath, we reach out. Co-regulation, not self-regulation, is in our nature. We find our cues from the sun and the moon, from each parent and caregiver. We find our place in this great turning planet by turning to one another, generation to generation. We awaken to the dawn and fall asleep at the evening's end. Our life's journey is part of something greater, something simple, something divine. A flame cannot be lit without a spark. A life cannot begin without the air. And we cannot begin to find ourselves without love. May we reach out to one another, and may we offer love and nurturing care. May we join together in celebration of the interdependence of our lives. In this spirit, let us worship together. I now invite Dina Emley to come forward to light our flaming chalice. Please join me in our chalice lighting words. We gather this hour as people of faith with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning, in celebration of the life we share together. And then with our hand motions, you put your hand out flat like the matchbook, and your finger is the match. We light this chalice to celebrate Unitarian Universalism. This is a church of open minds. This is a church of helping hands. This is a church of loving hearts. I invite you now to rise in body or spirit for our opening hymn, number 38. In our gray hymnal, the words will also be projected. Our opening hymn is Morning Has Broken. Please rise in body or spirit. This morning is by Evan Caravel Ziemer and entitled, I Believe in Fathering. I believe in fathering. I believe in the radical idea that men have the full human capacity to nurture. Hair bows and baseballs, cooking and creativity, tools and tiaras, camping, dancing, snuggles and shrieks of delight. Too many fathers don't believe in their own fathering. Too many are scarred by their own fathers to hear their hearts say otherwise. Too many have known fathers who, faced with a quivering lip and tears, could only say, man up. Too many have known fathers who knew only yelling and hitting. Too many have known fathers who lost sight of their sacred role of protector and became tormentor. But I believe in fathering. When a human being gestates and gives birth, their brain changes permanently. A father's brain changes permanently too, changes as he rocks his baby to sleep, delights in baby games, and soothes bumps and bruises. A A father earns his new neurobiology. In a world where too many mothers hand their co-parents directions more specific than those given to the babysitter, where a father out with his kids is asked, "Are you babysitting?" and "Where's mom?" Where fathers are the punchline. I believe in fathering. I believe in the radical idea that men have the full human capacity to nurture. Whether their children come through birth, adoption, step-parenting, or fostering, through scouts, sports, Sunday school, or youth group. I've known too many gay dads, too many single fathers, too many men raising children others couldn't, to believe otherwise. I believe we all, especially our children, deserve to know that the human capacity to nurture belongs to every one of us. I believe in fathering. Now we move into our time of centering and the sharing of joys and sorrows. We are an interconnected community that cares for one another, and part of how we embody this care is by making time each week to share the joys and the sorrows that we hold in our hearts. I will now share what was submitted online prior to this morning's service. We heard from our youth advisors and our youth about their time at ASP this last week. Beth Jager-Landis shares that the ASP team of 22 youth and adults returned home yesterday after serving 2 different families in Buchanan County, Virginia. In one home, we put in flooring. In another, we framed the walls of an addition and put in insulation and siding on a trailer home. It was a fantastic experience for all who went, and we are so grateful for the support of UUCville. We were able to make a big donation to the ASP Center so that they could purchase more supplies to finish projects for families this summer. And Julia Landis shares that the ASP trip to Grundy, Virginia, same trip, making the differentiation in locations a little bit, finished on Saturday with everybody arriving safely home yesterday here in Charlottesville around noon. The youth were diligent workers on their siding, room addition, and flooring projects all week, making a tangible impact on poverty in Central Appalachia by making homes warmer, safer, and drier. The youth were relationship ministers this week, fostering connections with each other, youth from other churches who were staying at the ASP Center, the staff who supported us, and the homeowners who welcomed us into their homes. We are sending love and support to the 2 families whose houses we worked on. Through the week, we served alongside the folks whose houses we were repairing. We heard their stories and learned how their lives have unfolded. And we're sending light and love into the hills and hollers they call home. And they will hopefully remember how much we love them and how much they shared with us this past week. The youth and the adult group leaders are already excited to go on the trip next year.
That was an ice cream receipt.
So Beth shares that was an ice cream receipt.
They wanted to show you all how much they loved your
They wanted to show you how much they appreciated your support. I was suspicious that that was an ice cream receipt when I saw the Dairy Queen emblem above the door in that photo, so that was part of why I was so thrilled to share it with you all, to know that all your financial support really made a difference for our youth this year. All right. And finally, another joy to lift our spirits today. Last Wednesday, your Mosaic Squad co-sponsored with Congregate Seville an interfaith luncheon, inviting people of faith in our area to join together to talk about how we can help our faith communities work to support free and fair elections this fall. We had about 30 guests attend. Thanks so much to David Shutt, Elizabeth Breeden, John Alexander, Diane Ober, Rosemary Ream, and Joe Abraham, and most especially Pam McIntyre for making this event possible. It really was wonderful. In honor of all of our joys and sorrows, everyone is invited to come forward as you wish and place a glass stone in a communal bowl of water as a symbolic act of each of us being held by a larger love that holds us all. All are welcome to participate, including those who are new to our congregation, and those online may type their joys or their sorrows into the chat. Joan Cast from the pastoral care team will come forward to help hold the space, and Joan will be available for a few minutes after the service in this back corner of the sanctuary if you are in need of support or someone to listen. Those online or anyone at any time can contact the pastoral care team at pastoral@ucharlottesville.org. Let us now begin our ritual of joys and sorrows. This community offers its love and support to what is closest to our hearts, and another way we show our care for one another is in sharing our financial gifts with our community and our congregation. Our social action collection for the month of June is for the Uhuru Foundation, whose mission is to disrupt cycles of incarceration by creating real pathways to housing, employment, and long-term stability for individuals impacted by the justice system. Angela and Ben, please show us the social action slide for giving for anyone who would like to make a donation to support the Uhuru Foundation. In addition to giving online, if you would like, you can make a donation with cash or check. Please use the social action collection envelopes and place them in the collection plate. Please make checks out to the UU Congregation of Charlottesville and write Social Action Collection or Uhuru Foundation in the memo line. Along with our social action collection, we also invite you to generously support the ministries and mission of our congregation Through your pledges and the weekly Sunday morning offering, your financial gifts support our congregation and enable us to put love into action. This is our shared ministry. You can offer your financial support for UUCville by using the text address or going to our website. You may place cash or checks in the collection plates as they are passed. Let us now dedicate the many gifts we share with one another by saying together, "We accept your gifts with gratitude. May we use them wisely for the highest good." Our second reading this morning is from Khalil Gibran, from his book, The Prophet, and it is entitled, On Children. A woman who held a babe against her bosom said, "Speak to us of children." And he said, "Your children are not your children. They are the sons and daughters of life's longing for itself. They come through you, but not from you. And though they are with you, yet they belong not to you. You may give them your love, but not your thoughts, for they have their own thoughts. You may house their bodies, but not their souls, for their souls dwell in the house of tomorrow, which you cannot visit, not even in your dreams. You may strive to be like them, but seek not to make them like you. For life goes not backward, nor tarries with yesterday. You are the bows from which your children, as living arrows, are sent forth. The archer sees the mark upon the path of the infinite, and he bends you with his might, that his arrow might go swift and far. Let your bending in the archer's hand be for gladness. For even as he loves the arrow that flies, so he loves also the bow that is stable. I invite Scott DeVoe to come forward and share his thoughts.
Thank you so much. I do also want to thank Leah for not only being my worship associate, but also for making it so that I didn't have to say a word until I did my sermon. I really appreciated that fact. So my sermon today is about fathers. It's about what it means to be a parent, what it means to be a parent's child. That's more or less the challenge that I've placed for myself today. I'm looking at my own ancestry. It's confused, a bit confusing, but it's personal. And I hope that it's relevant to all of our understanding about what it means to be a father. It also lets me show a lot of pictures. So I'm just going to say that's one reason why I have to have this microphone, because I'm going to be pointing up there a lot. So, okay, first of all, are there any quirks in my family ancestry? A lot of you looking at my last name would assume that I'm French. I would say, look at my first name. I'm basically Scots and Scots-Irish, all the way except for my paternal grandfather. And he was an orphan. He was deposited in 1907 at the New York Foundling Hospital. And thanks to his adoptive parents, he went for a time by the name of Sidney Duffy. He apparently ditched Sidney. He decided he liked Richard better. But on his wedding day in 1926, and can I have the first picture? Yes, there they are. They are the newlyweds. My grandmother had no idea that her last name was going to be DeVoe. It really was only when we got the marriage license. Next slide. And if you can see in the middle there, it says Richard Dieudonné DeVoe. That was the first time she'd heard that name. I'm serious. Why did he do this? It's something that I have puzzled over for many years, but a big clue came fairly recently when my older brother took a DNA test, 23andMe, and to his surprise, to all our surprise, we found out that we are 1/4 Jewish. My grandfather, next slide, was an Ashkenazi Jew. So, yeah, and just go to the next picture just to show him again with one more picture. Yes, there he is with my dad back in the day. And the whole question is, why did he choose the name DeVoe? A name that has tortured many phone people trying to reach me in the past. And I always know to hang up when they say, is this got DeVoe? You know, as they try to pronounce it, including the capital V. I mean, all this stuff. Why did he choose that name? I don't know whether he thought he had found a parent out there, but then why would they be French if he's Jewish? So I have no idea. I can only assume he chose something that helped to distance himself and also put everybody off from guessing his Jewish background, which I never guessed myself when I was a kid. Of course, I was not really even aware of who Jewish people were, but just looking at him, he's just my grandpa. So there is that. There is also the fact that I have always thought of myself as a Yankee. I know I've been in Charlottesville for the past 44 years, but before that time, I was raised entirely in the North. I knew my mother's family was from Texas, but my grandmother, Hetty, was a Brooklyn girl. If you can get to the next slide, there she is at age 17. Yeah, her official name is Henrietta, which you can see there, but she always insisted on being called Hetty. She always had a thick Brooklyn accent. I remember in the 60s, she loved to announce to anybody who would hear that she was fond of that new British rock group, the Beatles. Next slide. Yeah, there she is. Kind of. So, okay. But I sensed somehow that my family had Southern roots. There was kind of a rumor that one of my ancestors had fought for the South, in fact, that he was in Pickett's Charge, which I kind of said, yeah, right. And one of my earliest memories, frankly, was seeing a drinking tray prominently displayed that had a caricature of a Southern soldier on it, next slide, and the caption, "Surrender, hell no." All this just kind of, it's just kind of in the backdrop. I was, collecting a lot of Civil War centennial memorabilia back in the 60s, and I was kind of going, am I for the blue or the gray? I'm not sure. So it was only after I moved to Charlottesville, and also after talking at length with my grandmother, that I began to do some research. And to my great surprise, I found out not only that I do have a Confederate ancestor, but that he was from here. My great-great-grandfather, Robert Bowles, was born in Fluvanna County. In fact, I've been told by a friend of mine, also named Bowles, probably a distant cousin, that that's where the Bowleses lived. And in fact, there's a neighborhood in there that is informally known as Bowlestown. So I just go, okay, I'm back home. According to census records in 1860, Robert was working at a hotel in Scottsville, and when the war started, he enlisted, he mustered for service here in Charlottesville, and he served in the 19th Virginia Infantry. And I found the proof in Shannon Library. It was called Alderman then, but, we're being respectful. There is a whole row of these little books, and I went through them until I found the one for the 19th Virginia Infantry, and there was my great-great-grandfather. It says that he fought at Manassas, at Antietam, and at Gettysburg. And in fact, he was in Pickett's Charge. I mean, this is the most amazing thing. I mean, I've gone to Gettysburg and stood at the bottom of that hill and looked up there and just said, yes, that's what he was looking at. Fortunately, he was not mowed down by the Union artillery, or I wouldn't be here. Instead, he made it as far as the Union line, where he was injured, or wounded, as apparently my grandmother, you said that he always described it. He was wounded, captured, and sent to a prisoner of war camp in New York City. So after the war, Robert Bowles came back to Columbia, Virginia. Anybody know where that is? Yeah, it's where the Rivanna finally comes into the James River. And for decades, he worked as a boatman for the Scottsville Ferry, taking people across the river. And I just followed him in the census up through 1900, and then he disappeared. And I began to suspect that that's probably when the first bridge was built. And I looked it up, and it's true. It was built in 1907. He was out of a job. He decided to move to Brooklyn. So that means that despite of all this, despite of all my sense that that branch of the family was from New York, I am definitely a Southerner on both sides of my family. My ancestors were enmeshed in slavery. I mean, saying that I'm, the great-great-grandson of someone in Pickett's Charge, I think should count for something around here. And not that I've ever been able to get anybody to give me anything for it. And actually, I went through my records and I found, going back further, found some ancestors, found that one was an overseer, and that's when I just said, okay, I get it. I'm part of this whole story. And there's a certain kind of karmic justice at work here, I feel. As I assume many of you know, my professional life at the university is as a music historian, and I've spent all my time celebrating the power and glory of African American music. In some ways, I kind of see that now as kind of a compensation for a dark and complicated history. I assume my great-great-grandfather would have been impressed that I actually got a job at the university here, but probably would not have been thrilled with what I was teaching, but that's life, right? Okay, cool. Back to my father. Born in 1928. Yeah, sorry, I didn't realize that had been up there the whole time. Next slide, please. Yeah, there is little Don. Grew up in the depths of the Depression. He was a studious child. Next slide. There you go. I mean, I think I actually even remember that particular chair. And my mother, his mother, Hetty, poured a lot of her energy into her oldest child, who apparently wrote a story about, he said about a cat in a tree, but something excited her, and she ended up getting him to skip a lot of grades, and she also managed to get a job eventually as an administrator at the prestigious Dwight School, a prep school on the Upper West Side, and this is where my dad went to school. As you can see from these few photos, next slide, there he is right in the center. He definitely had skipped a couple of grades because he looks like he's about 2 or 3 years younger than everybody else in the classroom. Okay, next slide. I mean, there he is again playing chess, which I think is kind of cool. Next slide, he's there wearing, sorry, I started that, okay, fine. I skipped one slide, sorry. So it's wartime. It's 1943, and my dad's academic excellence got him a scholarship to go to Princeton University, where he studied engineering, and he was 15 when he started. What was it like for him? I really have no idea. I just have the feeling he must have been very lonely. He's not a typical Princeton person. At that point, most of them really did come from the WASP elite. And he was just an engineering student here in the middle of the war. His best friend, Arvind Koknatur, or Uncle Coke, as we used to call him, was an Indian student who also found himself at Princeton, and he's actually somebody I got to know over the years because, like my father, he always went back for reunions like every single year. The next picture, actually shows them on Fire Island. Coke is in the center, my father is on the left. I have no idea why he's wearing black socks at the beach, but I'll just kind of leave that there. So, okay. Nor do I know much about what it was like when he finally became old enough to join the Navy at the end of the war in 1945. Next picture. Yes, there he is as a sailor. I have some cool pictures of when he came back home, probably when he was 18 or 19, visiting his family in sailor's garb. Next picture. There he is. Next one. He's got a pipe. I mean, I have to say that's just kind of classic. I think I've got another one here. Yeah, there he is with his mother. So when he finally got back to college, he was now the same age as his classmates. Next picture. Yeah, there he is. He studied hard, took engineering seriously. Next slide shows us, in fact, yes, the American Society of Civil Engineers. He's right in the center. He is the chairman of it. I mean, it's just like this is kind of a big deal. He did also party hard, just to kind of show you. Next one. Next picture. Yes, there he is over on the right. I have to say, again, having women around at Princeton was a big deal. It was an all-male college at that time. Next picture, probably one he wouldn't want me to show, but there he is. Okay, so, okay, great. He met my mother. Next slide. There she is. I could do a whole thing about her and her ancestry, but that will have to wait for another sermon sometime or something like that, or you can ask me about it. So they ended up getting married in 1950. Next slide. There they are. And a year later, he became a father. You can see in this next picture, you can see him, there he is, feeding my older brother, Dick. I'm assuming he didn't do this very often, but there we go. We've got a picture of it. And I came along 3 years later. Next picture. There I am on the left next to my brother. Oh, yeah, okay. So what was my relationship like with him? That's hard to say. It was kind of distant. It was emotionally remote. He left all the rearing to my mother, and he went off and became a rising business executive. Next picture, there he is at a dinner table, looking like he knows exactly what he's going to order. Next picture as well, just to kind of show him this is at his 40th reunion. And again, you can kind of see the kind of person that he became. I rarely talked with him. He did not really like talking with us kids. I mean, when he came home, he would come home and he would chat with my mother for a good 45 minutes, downloading his day with her. We could only kind of hear from the outside, and then he'd go to his big chair and we could have, I guess we had our dinner first and then he did his. I mean, it's kind of an odd relationship. He did, for a time, have a more intense relationship with my older brother, Dick. There he is. And you can see him actually almost looking like, yeah, he's glad to see him. Next picture as well to kind of show him, I think this is, again, totally 1950s to kind of show that sugar pops there. I think he saw him as his future heir, somebody who would follow his successes as he put more and more of his energy into climbing that corporate ladder. I was the second son. I was more a spare than an heir, if you've heard that whole thing. He assumed that my brother would become a corporate leader, and I heard him say at one point that he thought that I might become a research scientist. You know, somebody, sort of a brainy person working behind the scenes, doing all that kind of important stuff. Of course, both of these projections fell short. You've heard the Khalil Gibran thing. You know that when you shoot your arrow, it goes, and you have no idea where it's going to end up. My father, I assume, did not ever read this, but again, I say, they come through you, but not from you, and though they are with you, they do not belong to you. Okay. My older brother went to the same college as my father, as did I. We were brainwashed. I mean, he literally heard this Princeton fighting song, Princeton, forward march to victory, and he thought this really was an army at the time when he was a little kid. So I'm just saying, we just kind of had that in our brains. He also majored in engineering. In fact, he even got a notch higher. I think he got summa cum laude as opposed to simply cum laude than my father. But it was the 1960s. Actually more like the 1970s by the time he graduated, but he was determined to be as little like my father as possible. I remember he would come home from California for Thanksgiving or Christmas with long hair and a bushy beard. Next picture, there he is, okay. He was a vegetarian. He made pointed references to, no thank you, I don't want any of that bird carcass. And to top it all off, he had abandoned engineering for modern dance. So I'm just saying, yeah. Okay, he did go back to statistics, and now he's a professor of statistics at Williams, but still. Okay, just want to be nice to him for a second. Okay, cool. I was not that dramatic, but my deciding to become a musician completely flummoxed my father. And when I told him I wanted to major in music, he insisted that I write a position paper explaining exactly what I was going to do. And I did that because he asked me to. And he read it, and, you know, after a while, he let me go on. Perhaps by this point, he'd realized that he'd shot his arrow, and where it landed was in a different place altogether. I also became a father. This is, in fact, my last slide. That's what I used to look like back in the day, 38 years ago, when I first joined this church, in fact. That was the first of 4 daughters that I've had. And I have to say, if I, sort of ask myself, how did I do as a father compared to my father? I'd say, yeah, I did pretty well. I mean, but in some ways, that's because I came from a different generation. In this generation, we've been raised in an environment more friendly to women's ambitions, We participate by doing laundry, shopping for groceries, changing diapers, wearing snugglies, doing the whole bit. Things that in my dad's time were seen as firmly within the women's sphere. And in fact, I mean, I really don't take any particular credit for it. At the time, I thought it was pretty cool, but I've seen subsequent generations getting more and more used to this and just recognizing that fathering is something that is just part of parenting, and it's kind of hard to separate them. I just spent last weekend with my daughter and my grandkids and my son-in-law, who cooks all the family's foods and participates in every parenting decision, just made me realize that by comparison, I did better than my father, but the next generation is much more involved than that. And how did I do with my children? Well, I'm proud of them, but again, as a parental archer, they have not ended up in places that I expected. I'm not counting my two youngest daughters who have just started college and frankly haven't gone very far yet, but of course I'm waiting to see. But the other two, some of you may remember Amelia, who was raised in this church, was a good Unitarian Universalist. She took religion seriously, majoring in it in college. She's now left Christianity behind and become an Orthodox Jew. And I just went, okay. And no, she was not impressed to hear that her great-grandfather was Jewish. She just said, no, Jewishness comes on the mother's side. That's irrelevant to me. I said, okay. And her sister, Flora, she developed a flair for language. In fact, all my kids are actually good with language, but there was a year I spent in Denmark. When she was 9, she went to school in Denmark for one day and came back and pronounced the Danish perfectly. And I swear, if you've ever heard Danish, you will be amazed at that. I would have been trying for months, and I just listened to her, and I just went, okay, that's because she was 9, okay? But something stirred in her, and she went on to study. She went to a governor's school in Spanish, and then she moved from Spanish into Portuguese, and from Portuguese she went to Brazil, and now she is fluent in Portuguese. She works as a translator in Brazil and lives in that country. In fact, I'm visiting her, I hope, in 2 days. I say I hope because the visa has not quite come through, so I may end up spending July 4th sweltering with the rest of you, but otherwise I'll be in nice, wintry Brazil, where the high is only 80. Okay. So as I close, I will leave you with some unanswered questions. My wife, Nancy, called my attention to a story last week in the Sunday New York Times. And in honor of Father's Day, the Times asked a host of therapists, researchers, and professional interviewers for questions you might want to ask your dad. And looking at these are hard for me to read now, because I wished I had a chance to ask them. I wondered whether I'd have the nerve to ask them, but it's worth hearing them to think about them. I'll just give you a brief sampling. For example, when you were growing up, what was your idea of what a dad should be like? Man, I'd love to hear that from my father. Would my 30-year-old self be like your 30-year-old self? Would we be friends? What good things from your childhood did you hope to pass down to me, and what did you hope to spare me? Are there things you wish you could say to your own father that you never have said? So I'm just going to let those sit, because my father is gone. He passed away in 2008. But those questions are out there. They are things that we can think about. There perhaps are things that we can ask ourselves. May we all understand our fathers by talking to them, by respecting them for what they did for us, by forgiving them for whatever harm they may have done to us, and may we all be prepared to look both forwards and backwards, to understand ourselves, and to be ready to take part in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Scott. I'm going to invite everybody to rise now in body or spirit for our closing hymn, number 34, Though I May Speak with Bravest Fire. We'll give Scott a chance to sit down at the piano. And only a couple pages is right. All right, so please rise in body or spirit for our closing hymn. Thank you so much, Scott, for your words today and the questions that you raised. And I feel quite certain Scott would love to talk with you more about what he said in the social hall. So I hope you'll seek him out and explore with him some of what he was speaking about. Our closing words this morning are from George G. Brooks. May the love that gives to life its beauty, the reverence that gives to life its sacredness, the purposes that give to life its deep significance be strong within each of us and lead us into ever deepening relationships with all of life. Go in peace, go in love. Amen, and blessed be.